Call the meeting to order and ask Councilman Poole to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Stand, face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll.
Councilman Poole?
Here.
Councilman Cotton?
Here.
Councilman Littles? Councilman Watson?
Here.
Councilman Barton?
Here.
Mayor Lovelace?
Here.
Quorum is present.
And approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
May I offer a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting? Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Watson, seconded by Councilman Barton. Any discussion? Councilman Poole?
Yes.
Councilman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Watson?
Yes.
Councilman Barton?
Yes.
Motion passes. Minutes are approved.
I'd like to welcome our visitors today. It's good to see some new people here today and some old friends. Glad y'all are here. And approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve agenda.
No, sir.
Can I make a correction on item 8, public hearing? You need to change that out. Whatever your call, change.
Okay. Any further additions or deletions? All in favor of the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and agenda is approved as amended.
I'd like to call a public meeting to order to consider declaring a piece of city property as surplus property. The clerk has an ordinance.
We're going to call this ordinance number 13-0708.
Repeat, John.
13-0708. What this is showing is they're declaring that property in the vicinity of burnt corn excess. So if they declare it excess, that allows the council to view a more wider scope for the use of that building. We have to do that by statute.
Make a motion to approve 13-0708.
We can't do it.
No.
The meeting's got to close out the hearing first.
Oh, that's it here.
You should ask
public
if
hearing
any,
now.
you should now ask if anybody is opposed to this declaration.
Anybody from the public opposed or got any comments? Now just close the public meeting. Call the public meeting closed.
Okay, now,
Now make a motion.
you have to, it's an ordinance, so you'll have to introduce it first, the three-phase
Make a
approval.
motion to introduce 13-0708.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Cotton, seconded by Councilman Watson to introduce the ordinance. Any discussion?
I would like to make one addition, if we could, under section 2D. Are we going to list the liability limits?
They in the lease.
Huh?
They in the lease has been.
In the lease we put,
And then, of course, that's covered under section F, or what
Okay.
you signified, but it'd be good to announce them if you wanted to do that.
okay, because the limits, I think we discussed, $1 million.
Right.
Further discussion? Councilman Poole?
Yes.
Councilman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Watson?
Yes.
Councilman Barton?
Yes.
Motion passes, ordinance is introduced. You now have the option for immediate consideration.
May I offer a motion for immediate consideration of ordinance number 13-0708? Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Watson, seconded by Councilman Barton for immediate consideration. Any discussion? Councilman Poole?
Yes.
Councilman Cotton?
Yeah.
Councilman Watson?
Yes.
Councilman Barton?
Yes.
Mayor Lovelace?
Yes.
Motion's unanimous. Immediate consideration is approved. What are the desires of the council?
May I make a motion to approve 13-0708?
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Barton, seconded by Councilman Watson. Any discussion? Councilman Poole?
Yes.
Councilman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Watson?
Yes.
Councilman Barton?
Yes.
Motion passes, ordinance passes.
On the old business is none noted. And the new business, approval of the July 2013 accounts payable.
We offer motion that we pay our accounts payable for July.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Watson, seconded by Councilman Barton. Any discussion? Councilman Poole?
Yes.
Councilman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Watson?
Yes.
Councilman Barton?
Yes.
Motion passes, accounts payable are approved.
Next item is approval of extension of garbage contract.
This is a letter from Allied Waste. Mr. Cassidy happens to be in the audience for questions. He's sitting in the back there. And what they're proposing is that the current garbage only contract be continued beginning October 1st of this year to be 3 years, as the other contracts have been, ending September 30th of 2016. The cost will remain the same, along with the amendments that were originally put into the contract before. Here you have the resolution showing that. You can see the 4 amendments there. Take a moment to look at those.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's no surprise to you that there's really no competitor for the garbage portion. Now, we will be putting out RFPs for the trash portion at a later date, probably within a few weeks. However, the sanitation committee will have to review that first before it goes public. Like I said, Mr. Cassidy's here if you'd like to question him.
I make a motion to approve the extension.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Cotton, seconded by Councilman Watson to approve the extension. Any discussion?
John, you said that there were no, you didn't have any competition, per se?
Not for the garbage, no, sir.
Okay.
For the trash, there's a possibility, yes. Further discussion? Councilman Poole?
Yes.
Councilman Cotton?
Yes.
Councilman Watson?
Yes.
Councilman Barton?
Yes.
So motion passes and the resolution will be signed.
I'm going to review of upcoming events by County Baggett.
Good evening, gentlemen. It is a great day to be in Brewton, Alabama, and I'm excited about things that are coming up for our city and places that we're about to take the town. First, though, we're going to go back in time a little bit. I've got a couple of gentlemen here who will be part of our July 27th reenactment and living history demonstration downtown in our park. I recently attended a similar event at Fort Sinkfield up in Clark County, and it was a fantastic day there with all kinds of interesting things to learn about our past. This is the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Burnt Corn Creek. The actual battle happened only a few miles north of Brewton along that creek, and I'm sure they can tell you more about it than me. But we've never really claimed that as our own, and I want to kind of change that because that's a very important part of this whole region's history. And it's time it kind of got its due, and this is the 200th anniversary, so we plan to mark that with a great day downtown. So without further ado, I give you Mr. Ben Ferguson and Mr. John Butler.
My name is John Butler. This is a very good friend of mine, Ben Ferguson. And we would like to thank you all for the opportunity to come and visit with you and participate in your community's activities and to share some of the things that we do in reenactment. I don't know if a lot of you folks realize that, ladies and gentlemen, but all of you are reenactors. You have reenacted, whether you realize it or not, have thought about it. But if when you were a little boy, 6 or 7 years old, and you were running around in your granny's chicken yard and you picked up a feather and you stuck it in your hair or you went out like I did and got corn sacks and went out and made a fort out in the woods, or made a hideout or whatever, or played, like Daniel Boone, or a cowboy, or if you were a lady and you made mud pies and you did things like your grandmother would have done them in the old days, you were a reenactor. Okay? So we've all done it. It's just the degree of how far you take it. And Ben and I have been doing this just about all our life. What is reenactment? Okay, I'll just try to give you a very brief description. It's basically what we would call is an infatuation and an enthusiasm and study of a particular time and place. That's what reenactment is. It's all of those things wrapped up into one. We can go back to the times of the Vikings. We can go back to the times of the Renaissance, to the time of the Scottish Highlanders fighting for their independence against Britain, the Highland clans. We can go back to the French and Indian War, when we were in a major clash with the French for control of North America. If the British at that particular time, we were colonists, we were British subjects, but we fought with the British to oust the French from this continent. If so, if that had not have happened, we probably would be French today instead of American. If you have thought about the Revolutionary War after the French and Indian War, the seeds of the Revolutionary War were set in the French and Indian War because of the way that we were treated by the British during the French and Indian War. They considered us subjects and servants, and we were to support their cause, even though our families were left defenseless on the frontier. They wouldn't let us go home and defend our families. They wanted us to fight for them, and they wouldn't defend our own families. So the seeds of the revolution started in the French and Indian War. Then the revolution came along, and you know the story there. I don't need to tell you, you don't need to tell you much about that. You know what happened, okay? After the Revolutionary War came the area that this is so well known for, and that's during the War of 1812. Alabama has a tremendous, tremendous history of the War of 1812. And if you ask a typical student today in our schools, what war did the Star-Spangled Banner come from? They won't know. Most of them might say the Revolutionary War. But most people don't know that the Star-Spangled Banner came from the War of 1812. Okay? And that was when there was a second invasion, land invasion of this country, was during the War of 1812. When the English, Britain, sacked the Capitol, they burned the White House, and if not for a hurricane, we'd probably had our Capitol and White House burned to the ground. Okay? So the War of 1812, then after the War of 1812, one of the major events came was our Civil War. And we know the story there. That was tremendous loss of life and so forth. Now, if you think back on the movies that you've seen, think of the movies that Mel Gibson did, movies like Braveheart, movies like The Patriot, Daniel Day-Lewis in The Last of the Mohicans. Think about these movies and the Civil War movies that you've seen done. If without reenactors, those movies could not have been made. I saw on this last July the 3rd, I guess it was, there was a reenactment at the Battle of Gettysburg, which took place, and there were thousands and thousands of reenactors that took place in that battle. There is no way that a movie production company could have went out and found people that could have made that movie or made that video like Braveheart, when you saw Mel Gibson out there with all of those thousands of reenactors behind him. They were all reenactors. They were not people that they went out and immediately trained and dressed out in period costume, regalia, to actually conduct that movie. So reenactment is a very important part of our society today. What you do in reenactment, one of the purposes of reenactment is to establish a persona, okay? Ben and I both have a persona. That means we have identified a character in our past or a lot of times this should go back to your ancestral families and so forth, what maybe some of your ancestors were, who they were when you study your genealogy, and you want to try to portray that particular individual. That's what we did a lot this last weekend up at Sinkfield, and we had that reenactment up there. A lot of the family members were there that were involved in the fight there at Fort Sinkfield, and so establishing a persona is a striving for authenticity in your gear and your skills. And it takes a long time. It's a part of a process. And when Ben and I began, we probably, I remember watching Daniel Boone on TV with Fess Parker, with his coonskin cap and so forth. And that's sort of, as a teenager, that's where I kind of got interested in reenactment. Well, a lot of things about that, really, the movie industry did not portray appropriately. Just like the cowboys and Indians you see. A lot of them showed the Plains Indian with big feathered headdresses in the eastern part of this country. Well, the Plains Indian, the eastern Indians didn't wear a lot of the big feathered headdresses. They wore turbans and so forth and plumes, like the Seminoles and the Creeks and the Cherokees wore. They wore a lot of cloth clothing. They didn't wear a lot of leather. The fur trappers in the West in the 1820s, 1830s, they wore a lot of fur because it was very cold. But a lot of the frontiersmen and the Indians in this area were dressed a lot like Ben and I are dressed because the cloth clothes were warmer and you could wash them easier. They wore leather leggings and so forth and sometimes moccasins. That was to keep the briars and the snake bites and so forth down. But we strive for authenticity and we study that particular time, and we strive for perfection in doing that during these reenactment events. The next important phase of what we do is education. Okay? We love to come and speak to a group like yourself. We love to go to schools. We love to go to churches. We love to go out with scout groups and teach the very basic skills that our forefathers used when they first came to this country. The type things and what they wore. I've got a bag full of stuff here. We could stand here probably and talk for the 24 hours probably on the history and the things that we do and the type of things that we do. We build rifles, we build guns. Both of these weapons that we have here, we build ourselves. Okay, we built those. So we strive for making our own stuff like our forefathers would have done if we can, but we can use stuff that we buy. It's not against our rules to buy stuff that other craftsmen and skilled people have made to use in our reenactment events. So education is very important. Without it, we would lose the history of this nation. Young people wouldn't know what people live like. They wouldn't be able to talk to someone. When we go into a school and you see those kids' eyes light up, and little boys come up there and they want to touch all your stuff and they want to know what that is and everything, and well, what is that? I said, well, that carries all my credit cards. This is for my credit cards. They start laughing and so forth. But it's a very important part of our educational process. And without the challenges and the sacrifices that people made to make this country what it is today, we need to let people know that and what they were. Now, Ben is going to spend some time with you. We don't want to spend any more time than we need, and we'd like to answer some questions for you. So rather than us talk too much, if there's anything when we get through, if there's any questions you'd like to ask us, we'll be available to answer those. So your time's valuable, and we don't want to take too much of it. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Ben now, and Ben's going to share with you what actually goes on in a reenactment. Okay, are there any questions at this point about what a reenactment is? That was my goal. Hopefully you have a better understanding of what we're going to accomplish there, okay? Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, the first thing at a reenactment is safety, and then accuracy and all your accoutrements like that. Now, the gun I use is a smooth bore. It was seen on the frontier from the mid-1700s on up to the Civil War. The bore is smooth like that. It can shoot shot or ball. On the other hand, when you're shooting ball, it is devastating, but John is shooting a rifle. There's rifling in his barrel here that puts it to a spin. It takes a lot longer to load. You have to patch the ball and make sure it's seated right. His barrel is what they call swamp. If you can look at it close, you see it slightly flares. And that's so when you're setting the ball into the rifling, you have more meat, you might say, up there to resist it. This rifle here can hold a 3-inch group at 100 yards, like that. Your enemy stuck his head up from behind a stump, he could hang it up. The smooth bore, it might, and the odds are 90 to 1 literally that it would. A 100 yards thing might group in a 5-inch circle. It'll hit just as hard, but that's as far as it goes. It's about 50-yard range and keep it in a circle of about 6 inches. However, you can shoot shot down the barrel. If you have balls that are too small, if that's all you get hold of, you can double patch them like that. And that's one reason the military used smooth bore muskets clean on up till the Civil War. About anything could be put down the barrel like that. And this would have been the kind of gun a lot of the backwoodsmen and the settlers would have had because it was more versatile like that. The long hunter would have definitely invested in a rifle like that. And this is made the same way but out of modern steel like that and modern metal. Anybody that shoots an original, in my opinion, needs a head exam. I forged out a lot of parts for this myself and bought others like that. Now, the smooth bore, like I say, was a lot more versatile. That's why the Indians generally carried a smooth bore like that. In this part of the country, the water in it. You ever wonder why the old hornet's nest was a backwoods southern Christmas decoration? They put them up on the fireplace. If you look at some of the old pictures, you'll see them. Before the Civil War, back in this period, paper was hard to come by. But wasp nests and hornet's nests, which you get inside that hornet's nest, it's like a bunch of wasp nests. That made excellent water in a smooth bore. The shotgun, not the rifle, the shotgun. Paper on the outside, twist off of that in your mouth to wet it a little bit down over the shot, and you had your overshot water. Now it's controversial in the Gulf South here. You can get toe-to-toe arguments for hours on what was better, the wasp nest or moss. They'd take the moss, and the moss had to be what they call cured, shucked, or ridded. You look at the moss and it's gray. Get under some of these big oaks and you see some looks like wads of horsehair, like that. That is where the gray has been rotted off. There's a fine filament in there. And that was also touted as the best. So it was more versatile, like that, than the rifle. But on the other hand, could not hold that tight group. And more than a few battles, rifling made the difference. The horn was used for powder. Now why a horn? Well, if you're right-handed like me, John, you get a horn off the right side of the cow. And the reason is it'll fit your hip better. The horn also breathes one way. Moisture does not want to penetrate in, but it will wick out. So you can keep moisture down. Stop and think if the cows could take in moisture and bacteria from the outside, they wouldn't last a chain gang break. The horn's designed to wick it from inside out. Number two, it's spark proof. When you're using metal, if you can take a spark, you're liable to be in bad trouble. And that's why at the reenactments, we do not load from the horn. And I think John would agree, I don't think many of the old timers ever did like that. You can pour it in, it's like pouring gas in a fire. It'll come right up that gas and it can blow half a pound of powder up right in your hand and your face. It was put in the measure and then down, usually pre-measured for the smooth bore and a paper, rolled up in paper where they could just bite it, pour it in, put that down over the ball. And that's the reason the horn was used. Later on in the Civil War and all, they went to metal ones. And apparently they want kept full of powder all that long. You know, like not like for a year at a time or whatever. But the horn makes a lot better holder for the powder than anything else. Okay, we pretty much got that down, Pat. Now my clothes, that would have been what you'd have gotten trade manual. The shirt could have been made and the hat too. But this would you'd have seen around a homestead or on the flat boats on the river. That would have been more what the long hunter would have worn. You'd have seen both at the Battle of Fort Mims, Burnt Corn, Battle of New Orleans, anything of that period. Both of them came from rural areas. One was more homestead type or a backwoods trader. The other one was a commercial hunter like that. And so we get into Burnt Corn. Why Burnt Corn? Why did they pick to have a battle at Burnt Corn? How did they know they were going to be there? Well, anybody familiar with the terrain around here knows that Burnt Corn, it heads up around Bermuda, out from Monroeville. Once you get in the Conecuh County, and especially in the Escambia County, you have springs all along the way. That was that wolf trail. And when we're talking Indians coming to trade, this wasn't just walking along. They had pack horses. One account says 50 pack horses they had at the Battle of Burnt Corn. They were loaded down with powder and lead mainly and some guns. Why cross there? How did they know they were going to cross there? The steep sides of the whole drainage bottom of Burnt Corn Creek, I don't mean the run of the creek, but the bottom went along, it's pretty wide, and the sides are steep. Well, anybody in here, we can get up those sides, but try taking a pack horse up it. It could only be a few spots where it could be crossed. And there was an old crossing right there where the battle was at. And they knew they were going to be there. Plus it was dog days, long days like that. They knew at noon that they'd be taking a break and letting the horses be watered. And if it hadn't been for the Battle of Burnt Corn, they getting in with more research figuring that Fort Mims would not have been hit because the Indians planned to hit what's called the Acorn Town. That was a pro-American creek town on the Georgia-Alabama line. But the reason they hit Mims was after they got worked over at Burnt Corn, and even though it was a disgrace for most of the Americans in it, because greed overtook them. And there was not many killed, about 2 or 3 on each side. But the first they run the Indians off, but they run off through that creek bottom, grabbing them pack horses and all those goods. That'd be like grabbing a brand new pickup nowadays, loaded down with a whole bunch of goods. Plenty of them didn't even stay. Sam Dale done his best to rally them, but they took off. But the Indians regrouped, came back and ran them off. But they lost all that powder and lead too. And they said it's about time we teach that bunch at the tin saw a lesson. And that shifted the whole scene to Mims. Now, when Mims was wiped out like that, this might sound funny, but that pretty much secured the U.S. movement west. Mims wasn't, this area wasn't supposed to have been hit till a year later. They had the fort on the Apalachicola loaded down with arms to arm the Indians on the Georgia line. This bunch on through Pensacola, Spanish and English were friends by then, was going to hit the Alabama frontier. Simultaneously, Pakenham was going to hit New Orleans. But these Creeks jumped the gun because they got so mad about the Battle of Burnt Corn. And when they hit Mims, which should have held out with minimum casualties, it was a mess and a half. Some reports say as many as 500 killed. And that just threw the whole Southeast and the nation in general into a panic. That enabled Jackson to get up his militia. People were flocking in, as well as Floyd over in Georgia, the Choctaw militia in Mississippi, who feared the Creeks more than the white man. And so by the time New Orleans come around a year later, Jackson had been chasing the Creeks all through Alabama, had them pretty much under control, about all under control at that time. And that is when the British invaded New Orleans. He had a huge army already trained and armed and supply depots along the way. And had the Battle of New Orleans been lost, the New Englanders would have negotiated probably everything west of the Allegheny Mountains, from Ohio and Indiana and Michigan all the way down to the Gulf, because they didn't want that area to be in competition with them. So burnt corn was a very important battle. The best way I go with that is, for want of a nail, a shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, a war was lost. And burnt corn was the nail, so far removed that nobody thinks much of it like that. And let me let John talk a little more on the armament up here at the right.
Again, if we're telling you too much, you tell us, okay? We don't want to overdo it or overshorten it too much. But Ben mentioned the smooth bore. The rifle, basically, if you think about it, think of basketball. That's Ben's thing. A basketball, you pick it up and throw a basketball. That's a smooth bore. There's no life in the barrel, it's smooth like shot. This gun is like this is like spiraling football. Okay? This would have been first used by snipers during the French Indian War, the Revolutionary War. When the British would fight the British, our frontiersmen, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, they would lay back, let the militia, using these smooth bores up front, lay down just a solid wall of steel. Okay? And Morgan's riflemen would be sitting back there in the tree. This would reach out 250 yards, and the main target would be a British officer on his horse behind the lines directing the British troops. Well, if he was down, they wouldn't have a gun, and it would throw them into disarray. So this rifle was one of the earliest weapons to be used in sniping. Okay? And basically all you did to load it, the three terms came from this rifle that you use today. A lot of people don't realize it. But when you tell somebody, don't go off half-cock, right? How many people have used that term? Don't go off half-cock. That's a safety position on the front line rifle. That's when it comes to half-cock. That's a safety position. The rifle won't shoot. So that means don't go off half-cock. Don't go off not ready to shoot. Lock, stock, and barrel. That's the lock. This is the stock. This is the barrel. Okay, so that came from the front line rifle. You heard the term, when something didn't work out, flash in the pan. That didn't work out. Got the flash in the pan. This rifle to shoot, there are two explosions. Okay, you put the ball down the barrel, the powder first, the ball on top of the powder. When you get that done, you put there's a little pan right here, and there's a hole bored through the weapon. And you put a little bit of powder right in the pan, flip the frizzle down, you pull this to the rear, and watch it spark. Yeah, spark, it's gone. Well, it's gone. That spark sets off this explosion first in the pan, which goes through the hole in the barrel to the main charge and sets the next explosion off. So there are two explosions. If for some reason this little vent hole gets clogged up and just this pan powder goes off, that's called a flash in the pan. It means it didn't work. We still use that term today, flash in the pan. So there's a lot of terminology we use from this rifle. This is a reproduction of a gun I built. This gun would have been used during the Revolution and probably by Daniel Boone and Crockett, some of those guys that went into Tennessee, Kentucky. It's called a Pennsylvania rifle. Some people refer to it as Kentucky rifle. But this gun would have been first built by the Germans and so forth around Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is called an early Lancaster style. If anybody ever seen the movie September Dawn, when John Lloyd picks up the weapon out of the wagon there, when the Mormons and so forth were involved in the Mount Meadows massacre, the rifle he picked up was a Lancaster rifle. There's some of this. Okay. So, can we answer any questions for you about our costume? Our regalia, we call it regalia, not a costume, but is there any questions about reenactments, what we do, our early founding fathers, and this part of the country? Can I answer any questions?
In your reenactments, approximately how many people would you have?
It just depends upon the event. We had a surprising number of events in Sinkfield this last couple of weeks. We were shocked. That's the first time that event had been done. And most of that goes to the people like Connie and the people that let the community know what's going on before this event occurs. It's not unusual. Like I say, it can happen anywhere from can have 5 to 10 people, you can have 1,000, just depending upon the event. Like I said, if you reenact the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, or you go into the major reenactments, I've been to reenactments where there's been as many as 300 people in the reenactment. But Civil War reenactments are huge. Okay? A lot of times the Revolutionary War reenactments are huge. You go up into York County, South Carolina, that was a hotbed during the Revolution. There are battles up there, the Battle of Kings Mountain, the Battle of Cowpens, when they reenacted the battle. There are a lot of people involved in that. It's surprising how many people are actually involved in reenactment. I mean, a lot of people do this. And it's really a good way for communities to really help promote the activities, especially in a small community like Brewton and Grove Hill. There's history there that people that live there all their life don't know anything about. They don't know what went on right in their own town. And their relatives and ancestors there that are the ancestors of these people that took part in these particular events. That's why it's so important. But then this could be a big draw why it's so important for your community is this brings in people. It gives them something to do. It gets them, out of the house and so forth. And especially for the youth. I try to focus on the youth a lot. Because the youth in this country, they don't need to be out in the street. They don't need to be out in the drugs. They don't need to be out doing the kind of things they don't get in trouble with. When you get them along, I belong to a trekking group. Okay, we trek. Trekking is we go out and we live for a couple of days on the trail the way our ancestors, our family fathers do, what people do. We camp, we hunt, we do the things that we make typhoons with, we build our fires and flint and steel, we sleep on the ground, we take one blanket, we build shelters, we teach them survival skills, we teach them to value what's around them, the land, the nature, and we teach them to respect it. And then without adults doing that, helping these young people learn about this country and learn about it. And then they get involved, and then it's going to be a geometric effect. They're going to get involved, and they're going to teach their children about it. But without what we're doing, and without support of people like yourself, it's helping us do that. And making these events like the Battle of Buckhorn happen. Probably if before this event is coming up, if you went to downtown Brewton and stood on the street corner and asked people if they know anything about the War of 1812 in their hometown, how many would have known about the Battle of Buckhorn? I said if there were people in Sinfield the other day, that Fort Sinfield, and we started talking, and everybody was up there saying, well, I said, do you realize that there's a Buckhorn, Alabama? Yeah, I said, and you know that the Battle of Buckhorn didn't happen in Buckhorn, Alabama. They said, what? It didn't happen in there. I'm talking about reenactors. They said, well, where did it happen on the road? And that's important for people to know. Welcome home.
I was at the 175th anniversary of the battle, and actually went to the battle site with Tom McMillan and Chuck Johns and Robert Thrower, who's the historian for the Poarch Creek Indians. And although it was a hot July day, we enjoyed being at that spot. And my family just happened to be involved with that battle. So I'm very excited about y'all being here today, and very excited, looking forward to on the 27th for the whole reenactment. Okay, thank you very much.
What time is the reenactment? What time is it?
9 to 2.
Thank you very much.
July 27th is the actual 200th anniversary date.
Saturday, worked out good. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. We enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And the next,
Any questions, anybody?
anybody got a question for him?
That's another good job.
You did great. Thanks, guys. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the next event that we have coming up is another exciting one, and it's geocaching. So, again, something you might or might not have heard of before, but Johnny Watson is coordinating that for us, and it'll be held August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, with the main hunt going on August the 3rd in our new park property. Johnny?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for letting me come up and talk. Has anybody ever heard of geocaching besides people that may have heard it from me and all? Geocaching is a worldwide sport. It started when President Clinton turned selective availability off on the satellites for GPS to become more accurate within 10 to 15 feet. That night, well, 2 nights afterwards, the guy got the idea, I can get a GPS now, I can go hide something, I can put it online, and people can go find it. David Ulmer, 2003, hid the first stash cache. It was up in Oregon, and within a month, 50 people had already gone to find a container, 5-gallon bucket, with a can of beans, think Spam, and a few other items in it, and it started getting popular. People started putting them out, putting coordinates online. Well, as it's then, it's grown out to be a worldwide sport called geocaching. There's over 200 countries that have hidden containers in them. Every state in the U.S. has them. States and well, not national parks, they have some. State parks will go in and hide the caches themselves in the state parks, along with holding geocaching events itself. They've noticed their numbers rising from people going back to their parks that's been there before, but going, hitting their trails, finding hidden containers. They're taking their kids with them. Adults from all ages are going. There are some that are handicap accessible to, you need scuba gear. Yes, you even need spaceship to get to one of them that's hidden in the International Space Station on the Russian side. So has anybody got a spaceship we can take it to? But I have a few hidden here in town, and we're, 20 minutes, 30 minutes off the interstate. People from other states have come going down to Pensacola Beach, the Gulf Shores, have come off their interstate to come into our town, Brewton, to find the few that I already have hidden here in town. So it's slowly bringing people in. I'm wanting to do an event that we bring a lot of people in, let them explore for the weekend, to know our town. Let's give them a place to hunt for a competition, do a poker run. I have 6 caches hidden. Inside there will be a poker card, basically, a playing deck card. You try and find all 6. You look at your cards when we come back to see who wins, whoever has the best hand. Well, say you're not good enough at it, that you don't know much about the game, you can only find 3. Well, the 3 that you get may give you the highest playing cards, and you win the event. So it's a friendly competition that allows anybody of any athletic ability, if they can't make it to all of them, they're still learning with it, they can still come in, they possibly can win and enjoy themselves with it. I'm going to be offering a tutorial on Friday night, the 2nd, held here at the City Hall, that will be allowing the locals who don't know about it or are interested going, what is this treasure hunt thing with my iPhone or my Android? How do I use this? Well, come up here, we give you a seminar, show you how to do it, get you set up with a free account. Only thing you actually really need for geocaching is a GPS-enabled device. Who doesn't have a smartphone nowadays? Not many people don't have a smartphone, especially younger kids or younger teenagers. And then you need a pen. You can get one anywhere. As long as you got something to write your name on it, when you find the container, you've got the device to get you there. You load them into your phone through a program that's free. You go out and you start exploring. It gets kids out of the house playing a video game. They're out hitting the trails. Prior to doing geocaching, I never got on the trails. I never really did much camping. Now I look for state parks that have places that I can go and camp at and that have geocaches and trails. Get my friends, we go and hit the trails, and it gives me something that, oh, I'm walking on the trail, I'm bored. Oh, I'm 110 feet from another hidden item. Find it, oh, I'm 0.2 miles away from the next item. So it keeps my interest in exploring the area, finding what's outdoors, and seeing new places I've never been to before. Then we're going to hold the main event on Saturday downtown. We're going to take you into the parks, give you information on the ones I have hidden for the competition. And those who want to go into the park and do the competition, or they just come in, get the paperwork, sign up, sign a liability release form, let them go hunt for them. That starts at 11, I believe, and then around 2 o'clock, we'll have George's Barbecue come in selling dinner plates, well, lunch plates really at that time. That'll be downtown, and that evening we'll announce the winners, hopefully have live entertainment. And Sunday morning, if we've made a mess, we're going to come back Sunday morning and we're going to clean up and we're going to open back to the community, to the community for us having the events. Geocachers not only love to go and explore the new places and parks and stuff, but they also give back through a program called CEDO, which is Cash In, Trash Out. They will go help clean up parks, they'll help build new trails in areas, I've seen them go and take indigenous plants out of areas or plant new ones into the areas for the park system, city systems. Back St. Patty's Day last year, I was in Arlington, Texas. I really didn't have much to do, off work on the weekend. I noticed there was a CETA. I went, met 70 other people I had no clue about. We geocached and we picked up almost 1.5 tons of trash out of their park just to have something to do that day. So geocachers, not only do we like using the parks and exploring them, we give back and help clean up as well. So we clean up our own mess with it. Any questions about the little hobby and the event I'm wanting to do here in town?
What's your name again?
I am Johnny Watson.
I appreciate it. You know, we just had, East Brewton had that duck race thing just for 4th of July. And one of the clues for one of the geocaches is about ducks. And it's within 5 feet of your building, a shell building downtown. And I'll challenge Reverend Blue to find that geocache within 5 feet of the back of that building. I think that's an easy enough place to find one. So
It
if you
takes you
find
back
it, let
there,
me know.
and the hint on it is Donald or Donald Duck, I think. I forgot how I worded it. Donald's my cousin. Well, once you look, if you go back there, you will find a duck. It's painted over, but you can still see a duck, and there's actually one hidden near the duck.
So we'll have a Brewton Restored T-shirt for you if you find that one. Thank you a
Well,
lot,
since you
John.
found that one, you can start an account. That was your first one you ever found.
Thank you, John. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Thanks again. Just so many exciting things going on in Brewton now, and I thank you so much for your support as we move forward and try to make Brewton a place where people can have fun and people can join in. And that's the point of the last thing I wanted to update you on is our Brewton Reborn project is underway. It'll be the next 9 months. We have 27 tasks that we hope to accomplish in those next 9 months. Very simple things. For July, our tasks are leave your house. We hope people join clubs. We hope we get involved in service projects here in town. And you can call City Hall and we can give you a list of things that are great, fun, challenging things to be involved in. Pick up litter. And that's where our barrel project comes in. It's been wildly successful to the point that I'm having to really go out and really search for some barrels now that we could accommodate everyone that wants to be a part of this program. And there are plenty of barrels we'll get you. If you've ordered one, we'll get to you. We're working feverishly. We've got about 15 that are deployed now, another 15 that should be completed this week, and probably 20 beyond that have already been purchased. So we've got a lot of them in the works. They'll be all over town. The main mission of these barrels is to, number one, remind people to keep our city clean and to give people the impression that we do care about our town and that we do care what it looks like. And it's also given us something to rally around in putting artwork out into our city. We want our city full of beautiful things, and we want people to be uplifted by the artwork that we have in town. The third thing is know your neighbors, and we're encouraging everybody to get out, just visit people in your neighborhood. On Fridays, we're calling them Friendly Fridays, and See You Saturdays. Get out and talk to somebody in your neighborhood that you haven't in a while. Make sure your people in your neighborhood know who you are, and practice being friendly. Brewton is a great town, and we are a friendly bunch of folks, but sometimes we need to practice those habits to make us even more welcoming and more friendly to people, not only the ones that live here, but people who visit us. And we're going to be practicing those, and we've got plenty of handouts here. If you want to see what we'll be doing through the rest of the year, through the rest of the 9-month program, be happy to do that. I've already been to 2 churches in the last couple of weeks. I spoke with the people at Second St. Salome a couple of weeks ago. Yesterday I was at New Beginnings, and I'll be glad to speak at any church group or any gathering, any civic club, whatever. I'll be glad to come and tell them more about the project. We want everybody to join us and everybody to be on the same page, because I feel exciting things coming here in Brewton, Alabama, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. And we want everybody to join us and be part of the solution to a lot of problems that we've had. Unity has been something that people have talked about for a long time for Brewton, and I feel people coming together now around this program and other things that we're doing more than I have in my lifetime here in Brewton, Alabama. So I'm proud to be part of it. I'm so thankful that you all have been part of the solution and part of making things better here in town. And if there's anything that I can do to help you or any questions you have, I'll be glad to answer those.
Thank you, Connie. I just want to tell Reverend Bell and New Beginnings, I appreciate everything y'all have done to support a number of projects that we've got going in Brewton. And if you can't keep up with Brewton Reborn, friend Reverend Blue on Facebook. he posts on there on a regular basis about the program, or we have a new Facebook page on Brewton Reborn. So we hope everybody participates and joins in this. Under miscellaneous business, there's been some confusion. The miscellaneous business, which is about people wanting to speak before the council. All you have to do if you want to speak before the council is get with the city clerk, John Angel, about Thursday before the council meeting. You're more than welcome to address us for. We try to keep it to about 3 minutes, but you're more than welcome to just get with the city clerk. Is there any miscellaneous business today?
Make a motion to adjourn.